Blood pooled beneath the grocery store door, seeping into the wooden floorboards like spilled wine that would never wash clean. It was May 1918, and Joseph Maggio lay dying in his bedroom above the store, his wife Catherine already gone beside him, their skulls split open by something heavy and sharp. The killer had chiseled through their back door, methodical as a carpenter, patient as death itself. But here's the thing about this particular murder. It was just the beginning. New Orleans in 1918 was a city already holding its breath. The Great War raged across the ocean. Spanish flu crept through the streets like fog, and now something else had arrived. Something that would haunt the Crescent City for over a year, leaving a trail of blood and terror that still whispers through the French Quarter today. They would call him the Axeman, though he used more than axes. Razors, meat cleavers, whatever he could find in his victims' own homes. He was particular about his targets, Italian grocers, most of them. Families who had built their American dreams one transaction at a time, selling bread and olive oil and hope to their neighbors. And here's what made him truly terrifying. He never took anything. No money from the registers, no jewelry, nothing that would explain why he'd carved through a door in the dead of night just to destroy lives. The Maggio murders shook the city, but people told themselves it was isolated. A robbery gone wrong, maybe. Personal revenge. But then June arrived, and with it, Louis Bessemer and his common-law wife Harriet Lowe, found in their own blood after another midnight visit. Harriet lived long enough to whisper that she'd seen nothing, remembered nothing. Louis survived, but the city's innocence didn't. Now sit with that for a second. Imagine living in New Orleans during that summer, when the humid air itself seemed to carry menace. When every Italian grocer looked over their shoulder at sunset, when every creak of settling wood might be something else entirely. The police had theories, but no answers. The newspapers had headlines, but no hope. By August, fear had settled into the bones of the city like dampness. That's when the Axeman visited the Cortimiglia family. Rose and Charles, their 2-year-old daughter Mary, nestled between them in sleep. The killer's chisel found their door. His blade found their dreams. Little Mary died. Rose and Charles lived, barely, and in her delirium, Rose pointed fingers at neighbors, innocent people who would face lynch mobs before the truth emerged. She remembered nothing reliable, just blood and darkness and the weight of loss. The killings had a rhythm now, like some terrible jazz funeral that never ended. Grocers and their families, always at night, always with their own tools turned against them. The city's Italian community began sleeping in shifts, barricading doors, leaving lights burning till dawn. Some packed up and left New Orleans entirely, abandoning decades of work for the promise of safety somewhere, anywhere else. Then came March 1919, and with it something unprecedented. A letter arrived at the Times-Picayune, written in dramatic flourishes that seemed to mock the city's terror. Hell, March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortal, they have never caught me and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. The letter went on, rambling about his supernatural nature, his love of jazz music, his promise to spare anyone who had jazz playing in their home on the night of March 19th. It was signed the Axeman in that same theatrical hand. And here's the thing about New Orleans. They took him seriously. Come March 19th, the entire city became a symphony. Jazz poured from every window, every doorway, every street corner. Louis Armstrong himself played that night, along with countless others, filling the humid air with music instead of screams. The Axeman kept his word, honey. Not a single attack that night. But the silence didn't last. October brought more blood, more families destroyed in their sleep. The Romano family felt his presence, though they survived. Then November, and poor Mike Pepitone, another grocer, another life carved away in darkness. His wife found him at dawn, their children's cries mixing with her own screams. The investigation dragged on like a fever that wouldn't break. Police chased shadows, arrested suspects, released them when the evidence crumbled. Some pointed to mental patients, others to organized crime, still others to the supernatural claims in that letter. The truth seemed as elusive as morning mist over the Mississippi. Months passed. The attacks stopped as suddenly as they'd begun. The city waited, breath held, for the next headline that never came. Had the Axeman died, moved on, simply grown tired of his terrible hobby? The silence stretched into 1920, then beyond, but peace felt fragile as old glass. Then came December 1920 and Los Angeles. Joseph Mumfre, a man with connections to New Orleans, connections to the grocery trade, connections perhaps to darker things, stepped off a streetcar and into the sights of a woman in black. She raised a gun and fired, clean and final. When police took her away, she gave her name as Mrs. Pepitone, Mike's widow, who'd somehow tracked this man across the country, who'd somehow found her own justice in the California sun. She claimed Mumfre was the Axeman, claimed she'd recognized him, claimed he'd killed her husband. The timing fit. The silence after his death fit. The terrible symmetry of it all fit like pieces of a puzzle that finally made sense. But here's the thing about puzzles. Sometimes the pieces only look like they fit. Was Joseph Mumfre really the Axeman? The killing stopped, that much was true. But the evidence remained circumstantial as smoke, and Mrs. Pepitone took her certainty to the grave. The case officially closed with Mumfre's death, but certainty and truth aren't always the same thing. New Orleans moved on, the way cities do. The grocery stores reopened, the Italian families who'd stayed began sleeping soundly again, and jazz continued to fill the nights, though now it carried different memories. The Axeman became legend, then history, then the kind of story tour guides whisper in the quarter when the shadows grow long. But sometimes, when the humidity hangs thick and the night feels too quiet, when old buildings creak in ways that seem too purposeful, people remember. They remember that for over a year, something moved through their city like a nightmare given form. Something that killed for reasons known only to itself, that wrote letters like a theatrical villain, that maybe loved jazz enough to spare a city for one night. The blood has long since been scrubbed away, the doors repaired, the scars faded into memory. Yet the questions remain, floating through the New Orleans night like music you can't quite place. Who was he really? Where did he come from? And most unsettling of all, did he really die with Joseph Mumfre that December day in Los Angeles? Or did he simply disappear back into whatever darkness had birthed him, leaving only echoes and uncertainty in his wake? The Crescent City keeps its secrets well, after all. Always has.